Okay, today we're looking at Figma and we're looking at this web design. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to do the header first, and then we're going to do the footer, and then we're going to worry about the center content. Basically, what we're going to be doing is creating a template that we can use to continue to work on this website. Now, this is a mobile first design because we are designing the mobile interface first, and then we are going to make changes to get it to display how we want it to for a tablet and then the desktop. So let's get to it. First thing we want to do is actually create a place to do our work. Now, previously what we've done is for ease of access and ease of use, we've put a folder on our desktop. In this case, we did Vico 2162 on the desktop. This is at home, so it's a little bit different than when I use it in the class. And we're going to create a new folder and call it Sample Portfolio. Now, we don't have any content in this yet. We just created the folder for it. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to open up Atom. I've already got it open. And I'm going to say File, and I'm going to add a project folder because I want this wireframe to HTML to still be available for me. Basically, so I can make my life a little bit easier. So I'm going to click Add Project Folder, and then I'm going to go up to my desktop, the Vico 2162, and I'm going to select Sample Portfolio and click Open. Now we have Sample Portfolio here, and we still have the wireframe to HTML up here. So what I'm going to do to save myself some time is I'm actually going to take the content from index.html, and I am going to copy parts of that out. So I'm going to copy everything down to the main and section, and I'm going to right click or control click and say new file under Sample Portfolio, and I'm going to name it index.html. And I'm going to paste those contents. So basically I've already got this first part started, and then I'm going to go back to that index.html and copy everything from section on down and put that also in my index. Add some white space just so we have some space. Now, we aren't actually using an aside for this. There's no other, there's just a header, main content, and a footer. So I'm going to get rid of this aside. And let's go ahead and save that so we're at a particular spot. And the first thing I need to do is change this title, and we're going to name this Sample Portfolio. And since it's the home page, we'll add home page to the title. And the reason why I copied this was because it saves me from having to type doctype HTML, and I already have the viewport content device with. I have all that stuff already in there, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. I've got a starting point now. And I also have this style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and change this, though, because I'm going to do styles instead of styles. I'm going to tell it that the style sheet is in CSS, and my main style sheet is going to be style.css. And what this means is I have to create a folder. So I'm going to say new folder, and I'm going to name that folder CSS. And that matches this CSS here. And then I'm going to right click on this again and say new file and name it style.css. And it automatically opens it up, which is nice. I'm going to close these other files just so I don't get things confused any more than I have to. I have an empty untitled, so I'm going to say don't save. I have an index that's been changed, so I'm going to save it. And I've got a style that's empty. So the first thing I want to do is actually mimic this information here that's in the header. So we have basically a logo, a name, and a menu icon. So let's go ahead and create 3 containers for these. Now in the class I used a span. We did different things. It didn't really work out well. We ended up with divs. So I'm just going to say div. And we're going to give the first one a class of logo, since it's going to have the logo in it, whatever that logo is going to end up being. And then we'll close the div. And we'll just put logo here. Okay. And then we're going to have another div. And we'll give this a class equal to name. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my name in there. And finally, a third div with the class of class equals nav button. And we'll close that div as well. So now we basically have 3 divs. I'm going to go ahead and put a nav button just so we have some text in here. I'm going to save that, and then let's take a look and see what that looks like on the browser. So I'm going to go to the browser, say File, Open File, go to my desktop. If I go 2162, Sample Portfolio, Index, and click Open. So these are all just stacked on top of each other because they're divs. If I were to look at these, each one of these is going to take up the full width. So if I were to look at the inspector, as I move over each one of these, you can see that each one of these take up their full width. Now what we want to is have them display next to each other. There's multiple ways to do that. And in class, we looked at float left and float right, but those always ended up being a little bit weird, and you got to deal with things. The best way to really do this is to use what is Flexbox for CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another tab, and I'm going to do CSS3 because that's the version of CSS we're using. And I'm going to type in Flexbox, and it's going to give me some references. Now, there's this complete guide to Flexbox and W3 Schools. Both of these are really good resources. I'm going to look at the Flexbox for W3 Schools. And as we scroll down through, we can kind of get an idea of what can be done. And we ended up looking at, see if I can find it down here. So we're going to take a look at the Flex Grow property. Now, this more or less has what we want. We want 2 items of smaller size, and then the third item being taking up the center spot. The only thing is this is a different order. We want 1, 3, and then 2. We want that large center piece in the center. So let's go ahead and see how we can do this. So first things we're going to do, go into Style, and we are going to say header, and we need to, so in this case it's Flex Container, class is Flex Container. Let's go ahead and click on the Try It Yourself. And Flex Container is display flex. So let's go ahead and do that. Display, flex, and the next thing is to look at the logo, name, and then nav. So name is going to be what we want to have 8. Logo is going to be 1. Nav button is going to be 1 as well. Let's go back to style. And let's do dot, logo, dot for class, logo. And if we look back at this example, it is flex grow 1. So let's do this, flex grow 1. And then we're going to do the name. It's class, so dot, name. And this is the one that we're going to want to be 8. So flex grow 8. And then finally, we want the nav button to be flex grow 1. So let's save this and see what we have now. Well, good. We've got our logo. We've got the name taking up the center spot. We need to center it, and then we have the nav button. So centering the name is easy enough. That's text, align, center. And we notice that this nav button is to the left. We actually want it against the outside edge. So we want it to align to the right. So once again, we use text align, right. Let's save it. Oh, text align, right. Save it, refresh. Now we've got the nav button to the outside. We've got the logo to the outside and the footer's right underneath. Looks pretty much like what we want it to. I am going to change this to look like it is on a device. I am going to say it's a Pixel 2 XL because that's what I'm designing for. And we get an idea what this would look like on a Pixel 2. We're missing the actual hamburger menu. So let's go back into the index, and we need to find something that demonstrates that hamburger menu, navigation. And what we want is considered a web entity. So I'm going to Google search web entity hamburger menu, and it comes up as a search. Well, it's almost like I've looked for it before. So I'm going to press enter, Unicode character for menu nav icons. Just go with the first one here. And it gives me this, shows the results. So I'm just going to copy this whole line out. I'm going to replace the nav button with that. And the less than exclamation dash dash, this is a comment. So let's go ahead and save that. Refresh. Now we've got the nav menu, we've got our name, and we've got the logo. The logo, we're going to put an image in there. So for this, let's go ahead and we're going to do div class equals logo image. I'm going to do img for image. Source equals, and I don't have an image picked out yet, so I'm just going to put double quotes. All images should have an alt tag, so I'm going to do an alt equals logo image and close the image tag, and then close that div as well. save this, and what we should end up with is no longer a logo, but a question mark with the alt tag next to it. See the logo image? That indicates, let me get rid of this. That logo image indicates that there's an image there. It just doesn't have a source. It doesn't have an actual image associated with it. I think this font size is a little bit small. So I'm going to increase the font size. And the way I'm going to do that is at the very top, I'm going to put an asterisk. Remember, that's a wildcard. And I am going to tell it that font size is 18 pixels. Let's go ahead and save that and refresh. Now it's a little bit larger. Now I've noticed that this is kind of putting my name off to one side because this is going to one and it's overtaking space. So I'm going to change this flex grow. Let's just change this to flex 1 and the left side to flex 1 and flex grow 8. Let's save it, refresh. So basically what this is doing is it's forcing the logo and the nav button to be in one space or one column, and the name to take up 8 columns. So we basically are looking at 10 columns, 8 in the center, 1 on the left, 1 on the right. And it automatically spaced this so that it would actually just take up the one column, which is, it'll work out. All right. Let me double check the code here real quick and see if we covered anything else on class. Yep, that's all we covered. So what we'll do is we will go over the whole logo, put an image in. I'll do a second round with the footer, and then we'll go to the main content. But basically what we have right now is we've got the start of a template. We've got, this is going to stay the same. That logo image, the name, and the nav button is going to stay the same at the top of every page. And then what we're doing for the footer is going to stay the same on every page. And then all we're going to do is worry about filling out this middle section. All right. That's what we have. Have a wonderful day.